Hello, hello, it's Wednesday. Welcome to Texas Book Talk with me, Heather Renee May. I'm here every week bringing you different authors from Texas and beyond sometimes because that's just what I do. And I like to introduce you to the authors, share their stories, their books, what's going on, so you can also ask questions. This is live streamed to social media, so please post your questions for the author or for myself. And this week, I have Paige E. Ewing, and she is an author of science fiction, fantasy, romance, and a crazy mix of all three. There's some werewolves in there. I'm really excited to hear about this series that she has. She has a series called Liliana and the Fae of Fayetteville series. And there's 3 books. Well, there's 2 books in the series so far. The 3rd book is coming out this year, which is really exciting. And so also she likes to throw axes and things. So, if we run out of werewolf talk, we'll have other things to talk about. Anyway, without further ado, let me bring Paige on. Hey, Paige.
And I don't throw axes and write books at the same time.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Although that might, make it easier to write about murders or something.
I think it might make my husband a little nervous if I'm sitting there typing, but
oh, no, not again. Well, welcome to Texas Book Talk. I'm so excited to talk with you. I want to hear, I think maybe what we could start off with is give me a little bit of history of how you became an author, and then we can kind of go into your series and talk about that.
I am a bookworm from day one. I remember when I was 3 or 4, convincing my parents and grandparents to teach me how to read so I could read the funnies in the Sunday paper, which God tells you how old I am. But yeah, I started writing my first book when I was 10, 11-ish.
Oh, wow. So very young. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I learned how to string words together, I was writing stories. And I've always been the kind of kid that makes stuff up. I don't know. They didn't call people ADHD when I was a kid unless they were hyperactive boys. So, the fact that I never finished anything and I kept staring out the window daydreaming all the time was just, me being flaky or
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah. So it wasn't until I grew up that I realized I was just kind of neurodivergent, and I spent a lot of time adapting to that. But I think it's one of the things I had a lot of fun with the books, because my main character is also neurodivergent in her own very unique way.
Yes.
And that's been a lot of fun, kind of coming from that angle.
So tell me about, because I started reading the description of the book and there's a lot going on there. And I was like, okay, I need you to, tell me. Yeah.
So I am kind of a technical person by day, and I did some consulting work in North Carolina in my younger days, and I kind of fell in love with the area. It's really beautiful and heavily wooded, and it's a lovely area. So I thought about what it might be like. The neat thing about that area is you can be driving down the road and turn the corner, and suddenly there's something there that you never knew was there until, and it's almost kind of magical. And I thought, what if in the future things were great? I mean, everybody writes dystopia and life sucks. The civilization collapses and life is terrible. I kind of wanted to write something that was a little more uplifting, a little happier, a little more fun to read. And I thought, well, what happened if we solved all this climate change problems? What if, we got really good, cheap batteries, and solar was everywhere, and gasoline was obsolete? How would the world change? And my first thought was, wow, the energy companies would be fighting, and countries that depend on that for their economy, there'd be wars, there'd be all kinds of social upheaval. And then I thought, because, it's me and I have to mix genres. What if the resurgence of green life and the pollution going away and all the world becoming more green had the effect of giving back some of the power that, like, the Fae and the wares of the world had, started to fade into the background because, there was so many machines and science, and maybe it was kind of a balance where science and magic sort of, when one sort of became less important than the other one, resurged and stuff. And so 30 years in the future, climate change is fixed, gasoline is obsolete, and the Fae are coming out of the woodwork.
What are the Fae? What is that? I don't know what that is.
So I kind of created this concept of people who could, every one of my characters can pass as perfectly human. And they generally have three forms: the human, the whatever it is that they're akin to, and something that's in between. So a demi whatever. So you talked about werewolves. So you have the human, the wolf, and the demi wolf, the wolf man kind of idea.
Okay.
And the Fae are there. It's kind of animal, vegetable, and mineral. So the Fae are the vegetable and mineral akin people, and then the wares are all beastkin. They're all akin to some kind of animal.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, cool.
So,
All right.
And the ones who tend to be the closest to the earth, the most grounded, are I took the word she from the legends, and I made those the mineral Fae, that are very, they tend to be the most powerful, the most earth-like. And one of my characters, the sort of love interest of the series, is Mineral Fae. He's the Obsidian Prince is the name of the third book that hasn't come out yet. But so that's kind of the idea of the world is everything's coming back to life as far as the Fae are concerned, because technology has advanced to the point where it's no longer damaging the things around it. And in the meantime, the world has had some upheaval, and the military in the United States has become a little stronger. The other aspect of the reason I picked that area is because Fort Liberty, as it is known now, it has been Fort Hood for 100 years. And 1 month before I published my book, they changed the name. I had to go through. It's supposed to be set 30 years in the future, so I couldn't have the wrong name. So I had to fix it all last minute just before it went to the publishers.
Wow.
But it's all right. So Fort Liberty is the oldest military base in the United States, and it houses things like Delta Force and a lot of the sort of secret scroll, the groups that we're not supposed to know about in the military. So I thought, if there was going to be a special unit in the military designed to deal with all these weird creatures that everyone insists are myth and they don't really exist,
Sure.
it would be there.
Okay, now wait. So I know Fort Hood in Texas, but this is in North Carolina, right? Okay.
Did I call it wrong? Fort Liberty. It was Fort Bragg. Sorry.
Okay.
Fort
No,
Hood also changed name to Fort Cavazos, but no, it was Fort Bragg, and then it became Fort Liberty.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Cool. No. Okay. No, I love this. And in fact, I'm going to share, I have the cover of the first book of this series. So this is the Fae of Fayetteville series, Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Fayetteville, North Carolina. Okay. And that's Liliana on the front cover.
And this is Liliana, and she looks pretty badass, if I do say so myself, and gorgeous. And it's a gorgeous cover. I love it.
I love the folks who make the covers. They are brilliant.
That is amazing. And so, okay.
I've also been really happy with my publisher. They've been great about letting me suggest things for the cover. So that cover is exactly what I wanted. I mean, Liliana looks exactly like I pictured her. It's like I got to pick the model. When her arm blades were not quite in this, I mean, they were like growing out the back of her hand and going this way. When they first did it, I was like, no, that's not right. They should be at a right angle to her wrist, and they fixed it. They've got her eyes in the right place. Everything is, I mean, it's exactly perfect. I
Oh,
was
so
delighted.
cool. That is awesome. Which publisher are you
City Owl Press
okay.
is the publisher. City Owl Press.
Excellent.
And they
Well,
are
yeah.
a smaller independent publisher who does paranormal romance almost exclusively. Which this series has been marketed as paranormal romance because it's a City Owl series. But honestly, the first couple of books are more they're just urban fantasy with, of course, because I'm weird and mixed genres, 30 years in the future. So near future sci-fi, urban fantasy. With
I like
what we
you
call a
said
slow burn romance, which means barely there the first couple of books.
that. That's good, and I like the fact that you said a description I read that you don't really fit in a single box. It's sort of a combination. It's a combo platter of whatever that you're seeing or you're feeling that you put into your books, and
It's
I think
my
that's
crazy
yeah.
imagination going, hey, one hunt werewolves. Hey,
Mhm.
how about a were spider? Nobody's ever had one of
Yeah.
those before.
I had never heard of a were spider before, but I was like, okay, this is a thing. I like this. Yeah.
Well, and Precise Oaths has two different kinds.
Oh, that's so cool. So, okay, so tell me about the book that is coming out, the third book in the series.
So Precise Oaths was the first, and
Mhm.
Explosive Chemistry is the second. I think the whole urban fantasy slow burn thing is really gonna kind of come to a head a little bit in Obsidian Prince, which is book 3, because up until now they sort of met and were interested in each other in the first book. In the second book, they sort of expressed the interest. There was actually a little bit of a kiss there, but not much. It was more like a and then it's like I gotta go, bye. And then but in this third book, it pretty much starts with her a lot mixing genres again. I love that all the books almost pretty much universally start with a murder mystery. And it's either someone has been killed and I have to solve it and figure it out. In the first book, Liliana gets accused of being the murderer. So of course she has to figure out what's going on and
Sure.
and and prove that she's not the murderer. In the
Mhm.
second book, because she can see the future, um, that's her job. She's a fortune teller. And she sees the future and she says she sees all these people dying and she's like, I don't understand. I thought we stopped the killer in the first book. What happened? And so she has to go around and try and figure out who's behind all of these deaths. And in particular, a good friend of hers, Dr. Nudd, the Oak Goblin healer doctor, is about to get killed, and she's like, oh, that's not good. And then there's this chain reaction and everyone else is going to die, and what do I do? So she's got to solve the murder. Well, in the third book, the person that she has foreseen being killed is Colonel Bennett, her prince.
Mhm.
And
She can't have
she's
that.
she's attracted to him, but she's not sure how she feels about him because having a Fae prince in the area is dangerous. It can attract war and cause problems, and some of her friends are in danger because of this, of him in particular. And if she just steps back and does nothing, somebody will kill him. She does, he'll be out of her hair, and he's causing her all kinds of problems. I don't want to spoil the second book, but he kills somebody towards the end of the second book who was a very much a bad guy, but his death has repercussions, and
Mm.
and Liliana has to deal with the repercussions, and and it's all his fault. So she's kind of like, I mean, he's attractive and all of that, but he's not the best, for my community, and maybe I should just not do anything. And then he
Yes.
kisses her, and yeah, all bets are off. I mean,
Yeah.
she's like, okay, yep, I'm gonna do whatever I can to keep him from dying. So that's the rest of the book, is her trying to figure out a way to save his life.
Oh wow. Okay, so she'll be doing that in book 3.
in
Book
book 3.
3, she's gonna, yeah.
And they
Exciting.
go
So
from
now,
first kiss in the first chapter to it's more of a romance arc. It's more like a romance arc.
oh, interesting, interesting. So now, do you think that you're going to continue on primarily with this series, or do you have other series that you have in mind, or
I
other?
have my agent has been shopping around. I think werewolves in the military. I have a strange thing, but I have a series that's werewolf fighter pilot and a werewolf and a lady um, who's an officer in the military, and she meets the werewolf fire pilot is the brother. It's in the second book. I'd already worked on the second book, so I'm like, but the first book is kind of like I love paranormal romance. No big surprise there. Um, but one of the things that has always bugged me is the fact that almost everywhere in all these books, they're kind of jerks. They're very aggressive, kind of butt heads. They're the kind of guy that I wouldn't want to spend 10 minutes in an elevator with.
Sure.
Much less marry and spend the rest of my life with. Plus, there's this trope that everyone has got a fated mate, and the moment they meet, it's insta love, and it's like that's just not the way love works. So I thought, well, what would happen if you've got this traumatized military unit, and they're all folks who have lost people to werewolves, and they're all convinced that werewolves are terrible monsters, and so they capture a werewolf, and they're going to find out everything they can about what they're going to study them and figure out how to defend against this hidden dangerous creatures and all this, and they're expecting to get one of those alpha dangerous blah awful werewolves, and they get a dude who's like incredibly sweet and smart and a bit snarky and entirely not anything like what they expected, but absolutely a werewolf. And they have to kind of, my main character in particular has to come to grips with the fact that she's maybe on the wrong side.
Mm,
And now what does she do?
interesting.
So it's kind of an interesting one I've got going on, and I've got a science fiction series about well, it's just a standalone book about colonizing Mars. Years back, I was in Space Apps challenge thing on how to grow food on Mars. Uh,
Mhm.
way before the movie. It was before that. But I won. Me and a couple of friends, and we were the global winners for how to grow food on Mars. And I've just always had a bit of a fascination with the challenges of space travel and things like that. And um,
Sure.
so that was the idea of I also have a friend who works at NASA who's been helping me with the thing, because like I put a space elevator in there and on Mars, and that's a really complicated physics thing to make happen, and if you get it wrong then everyone knows. So I
Ah,
have to be careful with the technology in there to put it behind that. And my idea was uh, Mars is Mars is inhospitable to humans. Humans have tremendous variety, including humans that live in like the Peruvian Andes and stuff that have maybe zero point 0.3 atmosphere. And that's their normal everyday, and they're fine with that. And they're adapted to it. So I guess my idea was, what if you took people who are already fairly well adapted to a much lower atmosphere and then genetically modified them just a little bit.
mm,
And then at the same time terraformed Mars just a little bit. And so that instead of trying to change Mars to be Earth, so that humans would be comfortable there, you took the humans who were more adapted to something Mars like and made Mars more like that, and sort of met in the middle. And that was
interesting. Yeah,
My
that's
concept.
that's a very cool
So
take on it.
I
Yeah.
can't stop writing. So I think that it's like I lived in a tent for about 6 years. We had
In a
moved
tent.
out in a tent, in a big tent. We had moved out into onto 11 acres, and we're going to build a house, and stuff fell through at the last minute. So we ended up stuck out in the middle of nowhere with no house. So I had 11 beautiful wooded acres to live on, but no air conditioning in Texas. And oh my gosh,
Oh,
that was a bit hard.
that would be
But
really
yeah, but during that time, I still wrote. That's like I filled notebooks. I ended up at some point the tent leaked, and one of my notebooks got wet and was ruined. And I was like, oh my God, that's like a month of writing. So I got waterproof pens. It's like I was very obsessed. It's like I cannot stop writing. Writing is like breathing.
that is
So
amazing.
I just
So
got
it's
a science fiction story published last month. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
no, that's great. That's fantastic. No, I was just going to say, so it seems like you have a very supportive partner in
I
this.
do. I
Yeah.
have to say. So way back in the day when I lived in the tent, I had a different husband. And
Mhm.
at some point, I had submitted something to Marion Zimmer Bradley's Sword and Sorcerer series,
Mhm.
and it had not come back for like 8 weeks. And she was pretty famous for returning within a week or two. And I was like, maybe it got lost in the mail. I don't know what's going on. And I finally got a handwritten letter from Marion Zimmer Bradley saying, this story was great and I really wanted to buy it. But unfortunately, it got cut in the very last,
Mhm.
um, for length.
Mhm.
So somebody famous made it in, and I missed.
Sure.
But Marion Zimmer Bradley said I was a really good writer, and she loved my
Ah, that's
stories. She
amazing.
wanted to buy it, and I was like 25, I guess, back then. And this was, woo. And I showed it to my ex-husband, and he said, I don't know why you bother. You have a better chance of being a rock star than being a writer.
Oh man. Well, then clearly it's good that
I
he's your ex.
was, yes, I was devastated. I did not,
Yeah.
I could not stop writing, of course, but I did not submit another story for 10 years. I
Oh
was I
no.
was married to my new husband, and this is a wonderful story that I just got to tell Elizabeth Moon recently because she had a concussion and lost her memory for a while. And she's
Mm.
doing much better now, but she didn't remember this. So I had to remind her at a recent author event where we were both at, and that was kind of fun actually. So this is what happened is we used to fence together. I like throwing axes and fencing and archery and all kinds of crazy
Mhm.
martial arts. But she's very into the sword fighting and very good at it.
Mm.
Better than I am, honestly, with the sword. And we used to fence together, practice. And one day it was really muddy. And so we all stayed inside and just chit chatted. And it turned out every single one of us was a writer. Everybody there, we were all writers, except my husband.
Ah,
So he got to listen to all of us talk about writing. Yeah. And I told the story about getting that letter from Marion Zimmer Bradley and my ex-husband just crushing my soul at that moment. And I just was so I didn't submit for forever. And she said, if Marion Zimmer Bradley said you are a good writer, then you are a good writer. Get off your butt and start submitting your work. And I sold my first story 3 months later. So
oh,
I was
congratulations. That's amazing. That's a great story. And I think it just goes to show that you have to, it's writing and putting yourself out there is it's not the easiest thing for sure. It's definitely an act of bravery and vulnerability, and you have to have the right people around you that are going to support you, because it only takes one person to
to make you
kind of,
feel about this big.
yeah,
Like, what?
you feel like you can't achieve the thing that your dream, that what you really want to do.
And
I
my
want to
current
follow.
husband is the opposite.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I like him already. He was the good wear. Maybe the
Yes.
other guy
And
was he was
he's the dedication in Precise Oaths. And the first book that
oh,
got published for the series was thank you to him.
oh, I love that so much. So we're actually coming up on like the end of our time, but I wanted to ask you like if you could give someone a writing tip, because a lot of people who tune in, so many people have books on their heart, books that they've manuscripts that they've written but have never really felt the courage to take it to an editor or to try to pitch it to an agent or otherwise. So what kind of advice would you give someone?
I actually did a whole thing on this, the 5 things you need to be an author, and I got very snarky about it, but it's full of great advice. So if you look that
Okay.
up, five things that will author Paige Ewing, and you'll find it. But I think if I had to take it down to one thing, it's probably improve your craft. And I've done over the years. It's like I love savvy authors. I always take classes there. Angela Knight is a great teacher. Um, but I also have always been in a crit group for the last 25 years, I guess. I've been in a writing critique group.
Hmm.
Not the same one, in 2 or 3 different groups. Scribophile Online is a really nice one if you don't have any humans around you. I live way out in the middle of nowhere now. Um, but it's great to have other writers look at your stuff and give you feedback. And sometimes it's useless feedback. Sometimes it's not helpful. But most of the time, if there's especially if there's more than one person who says the same thing, you gotta go, okay, I need to do
There's
something
something
about
to
that.
this.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, what are the other 4 points?
Oh God, I don't even remember. I think
Oh,
that I started out being silly, and I was like, you gotta have this, and masochism, and, it's like you have to be a little bit crazy. Insanity helps.
absolutely.
It was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, now, okay, so when is book 3 and what's the title of that again? Sorry.
Obsidian Prince is coming out in November. Precise Oaths and Explosive Chemistry are both already out. Explosive Chemistry came out in November of this past year. So it's like going to be a whole year in between. It took them forever to negotiate the contract because of the whole AI thing. They had to go back and put all this stuff in about you can't use AI for this or whatever. And it just
Oh,
took forever.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, and this is Precise Oaths. This is the first in the series. So if you want to catch up with the series, it's the Fae of Fayetteville series. And Paige, tell us how people can find you and find your books.
I am Paige Ewing _author on Instagram. At pageewing.com. Ewing is Ewing. It's like Ewing. It's spelled funny, but I'm pretty easy to find it once you start looking for Paige Ewing. There, Paige E Ewing is what I use because I'm not the only Paige Ewing out in the world.
There
So
you
it's good
go.
to have. Yeah, if you put Paige E Ewing, you'll get me.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, so exciting. So yeah, I mean, I think that like for everyone who is tuning in live or coming back to watch this later, which we will be reposting this to keep it evergreen through YouTube. And definitely check out Paige, check out her books,
And my
get
cat.
caught up. And there's a cat.
She's decided that she must be in my lap right now.
Yes. Don't tell Dottie my dog is not a fan of cats. But yeah, definitely check out Paige and her books. And like, you've got time between now and November to get caught up on the series if you're interested and you want to check it out. So please reach out to Paige. Paige, thank you so much for coming on. It's so great to get to meet you and hear about your work. And
It's lots of fun. Thanks for having me on.
I wish you all the best. Absolutely. And have a great release in November.
Thank
So,
you.
all right, y'all. So we'll see you again next Wednesday when I'll bring another author to you and give you a little snapshot of their work. So in the meantime, have a great rest of the week and happy Juneteenth.